I knew you was going to be on this show at some point. The big elephant in the room is that on the day my dad was killed, that you were in part of that accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say something about it. We can't do this podcast. We can't have this conversation.
Picture this. The roar of engines, the blur of speed, and Dale Earnhardt, the Intimidator, untouchable in his black number 3 car. Then, in a heartbeat, a crash that looked like nothing stole everything. On February 18th, 2001, NASCAR's greatest hero fell. But why did a simple tap end his life? And how did it spark a revolution? This is the story of a legend's final race and a legacy that changed the sport forever. On a sun-drenched afternoon in February 2001, the Daytona International Speedway thrummed with the raw energy of nearly 200,000 fans. The Daytona 500, NASCAR's crown jewel, was in full swing, engines roaring like a storm rolling in. The air crackled with anticipation, but beneath the thrill, something ominous loomed, a moment that would etch itself into the heart of racing history. What unfolded that day wasn't just a race. It was a story of loyalty, sacrifice, and a loss that would change everything. At the center of this drama was Dale Earnhardt, a name that echoed through NASCAR like thunder. Known as the Intimidator, he was a 7-time champion whose black number 3 Chevrolet struck fear into competitors and ignited passion in fans. His aggressive style, bold, unyielding, almost mythical, made him a legend. By 2001, at age 49, he'd won 76 races and over $42 million, cementing his place as the sport's beating heart. But on this day, his focus wasn't on adding another trophy to his collection. Earnhardt was running third in the race's final moments, trailing 2 drivers from his own team. Michael Waltrip, a veteran still chasing his first NASCAR Cup Series win. His son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., a young talent hungry to prove himself. In a move that spoke to his loyalty, Earnhardt chose to play protector. He stayed back, using his car to shield Waltrip and Jr. from a pack, ensuring they had a shot at glory. It was a father's pride and a leader's sacrifice, a decision that would define the day. As the race hurtled into its final lap, the tension was electric. Cars screamed around the Daytona Tri-Oval at nearly 160 miles per hour, bunched so tightly a single misstep could spell disaster. Earnhardt held his line, fending off Sterling Marlin's silver Dodge, which prowled for an opening. Ken Schrader, another seasoned driver, lurked close, waiting for any slip. The crowd leaned forward, hearts pounding. Could Earnhardt hold the pack at bay? The answer came faster than anyone could have imagined. In a heartbeat, chaos erupted. Earnhardt's car grazed Marlin's, a slight touch that sent the black number 3 twitching violently. The rear end broke loose, tires screaming as he lost control. His car veered down the track, then snapped back up directly into Schrader's path. The collision was brutal. Schrader's yellow car slammed into Earnhardt's, sending both hurtling toward the concrete wall. At an estimated 157 miles per hour, Earnhardt's car struck at a devastating 55-degree angle. The front crumpled, hood pins snapped, and the hood slammed against the windshield, a sickening rhythm of destruction. The crowd fell silent, sensing the weight of what they'd just witnessed. Schrader scrambled from his car, shaken but unharmed, and rushed to Earnhardt's wreck. Peering inside, his face told a story no one wanted to hear. "What I saw in the car that day will stay with me," Schrader later said, his voice heavy with grief. He waved frantically for help, a gesture that pierced the hearts of onlookers. Emergency crews swarmed the scene, their faces tight with urgency. They worked to free Earnhardt, but the damage was catastrophic. Inside the cockpit, there was no movement, no sign of life. On pit road, the mood shifted from celebration to dread. Dale Jr., who had just crossed the finish line in second, was caught up in the thrill of the moment, unaware of the tragedy unfolding. Michael Waltrip, finally tasting victory after years of struggle, stood in victory lane, but the joy was fleeting. Whispers spread like wildfire. Something was wrong with Dale. As emergency crews shielded the wreckage from cameras, the crowd's cheers gave way to an eerie stillness. What happened inside that black car? The answer came like a thunderclap. At Halifax Medical Center, just 2 miles from the speedway, doctors confirmed the unthinkable. Dale Earnhardt was gone. The official cause was a basilar skull fracture, a devastating injury triggered by the violent forces of the crash. Reports later revealed a critical detail. Earnhardt's left side lap belt had separated, allowing his body to twist forward, amplifying the impact's deadly force. Tragically, he had chosen not to wear a head and neck safety device, a decision many believed could have changed the outcome. The racing world reeled. Fans wept in the stands. Broadcasters choked on their words, and drivers stood frozen, grappling with the loss of their fiercest competitor. Up until that point, when somebody had an accident and it took their life, you thought, that could happen to anybody, but it's not going to happen to me. Dale Earnhardt Jr. later reflected. His father's death shattered that illusion, exposing the sport's vulnerabilities in a way nothing else could. But from this heartbreak came transformation. Earnhardt's death, the fourth NASCAR fatality in 8 months, sparked a safety revolution. NASCAR mandated the Hans device, introduced safer barriers to absorb crash energy, and overhauled car designs with the car tomorrow. Since that day, no driver has lost their life in a major NASCAR race, a testament to the changes born from tragedy. Richard Childress, Earnhardt's team owner and friend, said it best. As terrible as it was, there's a lot that came out of it with the safety part going forward. 24 years later, the memory of that crash lingers like a shadow over Daytona. It wasn't just the sound of metal or the sight of a crumpled car. It was a silence that followed, the moment a sport lost its soul. Yet, Earnhardt's legacy burns bright, not only in his victories, but in the lives saved through the safety measures his loss inspired. The moment Ken Schrader peered into Dale Earnhardt's car, his world stopped. The man he had raced alongside for years, the legend who seemed invincible, was gone. Schrader's frantic wave for help was a silent scream that echoed to the hearts of every fan and driver at Daytona. It was a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word, loss, shock, and an unbearable truth. Later, Schrader would recall, "I knew he was dead." His words, heavy with grief, captured the raw, unfiltered horror of that instant. Emergency crews descended upon the wreckage with precision of a well-rehearsed drill, but the urgency in their movements betrayed the gravity of the situation. The front of Earnhardt's car was a twisted mess. The hood ripped loose, the windshield shattered. As they worked to extricate him, a hush fell over the track. The roar of engines had ceased, replaced by the distant wail of sirens as the ambulance carried Earnhardt to Halifax Medical Center, just 2 miles away. Reporters gathered near the hospital, their faces grim, as the news broke across the country. Commentators choked up on live broadcasts, their voices breaking under the weight of the announcement. Fans at home sat frozen, unable to process the loss of a symbol, a man who had been the soul of the sport. But who was Dale Earnhardt, really? To understand the magnitude of this loss, we must look back at the man behind the helmet. Born into a racing family in Kannapolis, North Carolina, Dale grew up with the smell of gasoline and the sound of engines in his blood. His father, Ralph Earnhardt, was a respected short-track racer, and young Dale followed in his footsteps with a determination that was both inspiring and intimidating. Dropping out of high school to pursue his passion, Earnhardt clawed his way up to the ranks of stock car racing. His aggressive driving style earned him the nickname the Intimidator, but it was his unwavering commitment to the sport that endeared him to fans. By 2001, he had won 7 NASCAR Cup Series championships, 76 races, and amassed over $42 million in career earnings. Yet, for all his success, Earnhardt remained grounded, a man who lived for the thrill of the race and the camaraderie of the garage. His death, however, was not just the loss of a driver. It was a catalyst for change. In the days following crash, as tributes poured in, flowers laid near the track, messages scrawled on signs, questions began to surface. How could a crash that appeared relatively minor claim the life of one of the sport's greatest? The answer lay in the autopsy report, released in August 2001, which revealed a basilar skull fracture, a devastating injury caused by the violent forces of the impact. Further investigation uncovered a critical detail. Earnhardt's seatbelt had failed during the crash. The left side lap belt had separated, allowing his body to surge forward upon impact. This failure, combined with the absence of a head and neck restraint system, left him vulnerable to the fatal injury. At the time, the Hans device was available but not mandatory in NASCAR. Many drivers, including Earnhardt, had chosen not to use it, citing discomfort or restrictions in movement. Just days before the crash, Earnhardt had approached fellow driver Dale Jarrett, who had begun wearing the Hans device that week at Daytona. Over beers, Earnhardt asked, "Are you wearing this because you're afraid of dying?" Jarrett replied, "No, I think it gives me a better chance in a crash." Earnhardt's death proved Jarrett right, and the sport would never be the same. Within months, NASCAR mandated the use of head and neck restraints, a decision that would save countless lives. The changes didn't stop there. The sport underwent a comprehensive safety overhaul. Seatbelt systems were reevaluated, with stricter installation guidelines to prevent failures. The car of tomorrow, introduced in 2007, featured a redesigned chassis with improved impact absorption. Safer barriers, developed after years of research, were installed at tracks nationwide, softening the blow of high-speed crashes. These advancements have had a profound impact. Since Earnhardt's death, no driver has lost their life in a NASCAR Cup Series race, a testament to the effectiveness of these measures. Kevin Harvick, who replaced Earnhardt at Richard Childress Racing, noted the impact he has had after his death on the safety of the sport is far greater than would have happened with anybody else. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who was just beginning to make his mark in 2001, reflected on the tragedy. When it happened to Dad, it hit home. It made everyone realize we needed to do better. And do better they did. The safety revolution sparked by Earnhardt's death has allowed NASCAR to thrive, with innovations like the 2022 next-gen car introducing even stronger chassis and enhanced cockpit protection. Yet, the memory of that day lingers, a reminder of the risks inherent in the sport and the price paid for its thrills. It's also a tribute to a man who, even in death, reshaped racing. As we reflect on that tragic afternoon, we see not just the end of an era, but the dawn of a safer future, ensuring the spirit of drivers like Earnhardt lives on. The echoes of that tragic day at Daytona lingered, a somber reminder of how quickly glory can turn to grief. Dale Earnhardt's passing wasn't just a loss for NASCAR. It was a wake-up call that forced the sport to confront its vulnerabilities. From the ashes of that February afternoon in 2001, a revolution was born, one that would save lives and redefine racing for generations. But how did a single moment spark such sweeping change? And what did it mean for the man known as the Intimidator? NASCAR didn't waste time. Engineers and safety experts pored over every detail of the crash, dissecting telemetry data like detectives chasing a lead. They recreated the accident in controlled environments, slamming cars into walls to understand the forces at play. The findings were stark. A failed seatbelt in the absence of a head and neck restraint had turned a survivable crash into a tragedy. The sports leaders gathered drivers, crew chiefs, and officials for urgent briefings. These weren't casual discussions. They were mandates for survival. No one wanted to see another hero fall. Could NASCAR rise to the challenge? The answer came swiftly. By the 2002 season, the Hans device was mandatory for every driver in NASCAR's top series. This simple piece of equipment, which tethered the helmet to the shoulders, kept heads from snapping forward in crashes, protecting the neck and skull. Seat belts were overhauled, too, with new designs and stricter installation protocols to ensure they held firm under the brutal forces of high-speed impacts. Tracks weren't spared either. Safer barriers, steel and foam walls that absorbed crash energy, began appearing at venues like Daytona and Talladega. According to NASCAR, these barriers have reduced G-forces by up to 30%, saving countless lives. Since Earnhardt's death, no driver has lost their life in a NASCAR Cup Series race, a statistic that speaks volumes about the changes he inspired. But the impact stretched far beyond American stock car racing. Earnhardt's tragedy sent shockwaves to the motorsport world, prompting IndyCar to mandate Hans devices by 2001 and Formula One to enhance cockpit safety with devices like the Halo, introduced in 2018. Even grassroots dirt tracks adopted similar measures, proving that one man's loss could protect drivers everywhere. The ripple effect was undeniable. Racing wasn't just faster, it was safer. How did a single crash ignite a global movement? Earnhardt's legacy, once defined by his fearless driving in 7 championships, took on a new dimension. The black number 3 Chevrolet, a symbol of his dominance, became a beacon of change. Young drivers entering the sport today strap on Hans devices without a second thought, race on tracks built to protect them, and trust in cars designed with survival in mind. Dale's death changed everything, said driver Kevin Harvick, who took over Earnhardt's ride at Richard Childress Racing. It made us realize we weren't invincible. Every time a driver walks away from a crumpled car, waving to the crowd, it's a nod to the man who paid the ultimate price to make it possible. Yet, Earnhardt's influence wasn't confined to the racetrack. In the days after his death, his family faced a different kind of battle, one that tested their resolve and redefined privacy in the public eye. Florida's open records laws at the time classified autopsy photos as public documents, and when newspapers requested access to Earnhardt's, his widow, Teresa, and son, Dale Jr., were devastated. The thought of their loved one's final moments being splashed across headlines was unbearable. They fought back, demanding the photos be sealed to preserve his dignity. Was it possible to protect a legend's memory in an age of relentless media? The legal struggle was fierce. Media outlets argued for transparency, claiming the public had a right to verify the investigation. The Earnhardt family countered that such images served no purpose beyond sensationalism. Fans rallied behind them, flooding courtrooms and airwaves in support. In a landmark decision, the Florida legislature passed the Earnhardt Family Protection Act in 2001, barring public access to autopsy photos without judicial approval. This law didn't just shield Earnhardt's memory. It set a precedent, prompting states like Georgia and North Carolina to enact similar protections. His family's courage ensured that grief wouldn't be exploited, adding another layer to his legacy. Dale Earnhardt Jr., now a NASCAR Hall of Famer, has carried his father's torch with grace. "Dad's death reshaped me," he shared in a 2021 interview with NBC Sports. "It taught me about resilience, about cherishing what matters." He's honored his father through JR Motorsports, a racing team that nurtures new talent, and by advocating for safety advancements. "Every time I see a driver walk away from a wreck, I think of him," he said. Earnhardt's story resonates beyond racing. Studied in law schools for its impact on privacy, and in safety conferences for its role in motorsport evolution. Beyond the track and the courtroom, Earnhardt was a man of ambition and vision. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $70 million, a fortune built through 76 Cup Series wins, 7 championships, and sharp business moves. He owned Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, which included Chevrolet dealerships in North Carolina, where he sold limited edition vehicles like the 2002 Monte Carlo SS Dale Earnhardt Edition. What does it mean to race without fear, knowing someone paid the ultimate price to keep you safe? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take on the Intimidator's lasting impact